Welcome to your NFL Week 7 picks. I'm Mitch. This is the Bottom Line View. And in this video, I pick every single game of Week 7. Every week, live on the BLV, I pick every single game straight up and versus the spread, and I give you my thoughts on the offense, the defense, the matchups in each and every game, the strengths, the weaknesses, the matchups within each and every game. So if that sounds good, man, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're wondering, hey, Mitch, I'm watching this live, but I can't access the chat. The only people that can access the live chat are the BLV loyal YouTube members. It starts at $3 Canadian. If you want to join, you become a member. You can comment. You can say, hey, Mitch, do you like the Broncos -2.5 on Thursday night? I can provide my answer. Or you could just give your picks like Big Al and others in the chat. Shout out to all the homies. Shout out to the patrons. We were cooking in Week 6 on Patreon. Link in the description if you want to find all my bets each and every week of the NFL season. Patreon link in the description. Shout out to Miss Jennifer, Stephanie. Shout out to Mr. Young, who says spike the like button. Shout out to Big Al. Shout out to Singh. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to Deshaun and everybody watching this live at home. Let's have some fun, man. Let's pick some NFL football games. And let's check out how I did in Week 6. I'm actually proud to reveal my record last week. We actually didn't do too bad. I think a lot of people did well, so that's great. And a lot of people bounced back. Most importantly, we went 5-0 on our best bets. So we are back to 500. We were sitting at 10-15 entering Week 6. We're now back to 500. So now you can mark it from here on out. From Week 7 on. Can we hit 60%, 3-2 for the rest of the season in our best bets? That's what the plan is. That's what we're trying to do here on the BLV. Of course, the best bets will be revealed Thursday for the public. Spread record is 48, 41, and 3. Last week, we went 9-5 on the spread. We lost with the Patriots, the Panthers, the Browns covered and the Eagles did not, so that was one of our losses. The Jets, and I think somebody else. I'm pretty sure we went 9-5. We may have gone 10-4, but I think I'm missing a game that I did lose on. Straight up, we lost. I think we won 12 out of the 14. I think we went 12-2 straight up. So now we're 54-38. The games that we got wrong straight up, the Titans, only because I thought that Anthony Richardson was going to play. So I'll take that L. That's fine. And then we lost on Monday night. I picked the upset with the Jets. But of course, this was a week of favorites. So the Buffalo Bills did come through. I shouldn't have bet against my boy Josh Allen. Of course, that's what happens when I pick against my favorite player. So I guess that was just the way it goes. Yeah, let's get started, though, with Thursday night. Spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started, guys, with Thursday Night Football. It is the Sean Payton Bowl. Sean Payton revenge game. It is ugly football. The New Orleans Saints at home. Underdogs of 2, maybe 2.5. The line will probably move from 1.5 to 2.5, somewhere in that range by kickoff. I don't expect this to get above 3, just because the Broncos are not good enough to lay 3 against any opponent on the road on a short week. And typically, short weeks do favor the home team. Now, when we're talking about this game, I think it's most important to understand why the spread is what it is. The spread is 2.5 because the Saints have literally no one. They have literally no one left. Derek Carr is no longer the quarterback. It's Spencer Rattler, who didn't look too bad in his first ever start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was actually half decent, especially in the first half of that game, the second quarter in particular. But he looked like he could play, especially in the short passing game. He does need to work on getting the ball down the field, but that is also a rookie in his first start. So relatively low expectations. Chris Olave has a concussion. He is out, at least for this week. Rashid Shaheed, done for the season. Offensive line, putrid. McCoy, out. Interior, beat up. Tackles, not ideal. So pretty much what you have for the Saints is Alvin Kamara, Turtles boy, Bo, and Jawan Johnson. And I don't think Taysom Hill is going to be playing this one, but I think he's questionable. I'm actually going to look that up just to make sure. Is Taysom Hill playing this week? Doubtful. So yeah, not even Taysom Hill will be there for the Saints. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the Saints defense absolutely sucks. They allowed 600 yards to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They made the 2024 Chiefs look like the 2018 Chiefs offense. So they are pretty bad on defense right now. They can't get a pass rush. They can't really stop the run that effectively, which is something they've always been good at. And they have really good perimeter corners, but they choose to play soft zone all the time. I don't know. It feels like Dennis Allen is going to get fired at any moment. I look at Denver and I think they're the more organized, predictable team going into this game. Bo Nix obviously is not very good, but he's probably better than Spencer Rattler, although debatable. The O-line of the Broncos is certainly much better than the Saints. The O-line of the Broncos, I think, is probably one of the more underrated units in the league. And I would also say that the Broncos pass rush is also one of the more underrated units in the league, led by Zach Allen. The secondary for Denver will not have Pat Surtain on the outside, the perimeter, locking down any of the Saints receivers. But that being said, the Saints don't have any of their receivers, so does it really matter, right? Shout out to Riley Moss, who's been playing phenomenal football at corner. Actually, their entire secondary has been playing above expectation this year. I look at this game as a perfect spot for Sean Payton. This was the Sean Payton Bowl. The reason this game is in prime time because it's Sean Payton going back to New Orleans. And it makes all the sense in the world that the Saints would lose this game and the Broncos would win this game. It makes all the sense in the world to me. Just based on storyline, based on why are you tuning into this game? That's pretty much the reason. It feels like that's what's going to happen, right? So I think the Broncos will be able to just protect their quarterback better. I think the Broncos will be able to get more stops through their defense because they have the better defense. And I think Sean Payton will be motivated to put forth a good game plan for this game because this game means a lot to him emotionally and, just from his history. So I think Denver will win. I think Denver will cover. I think they've been the better team as of late. They're coming off a bit of a bad performance against the Chargers. They showed some life in the second half, but they're the healthier team. There's really no reason for me to pick the Saints here. If the Saints pull this off, it would have to take a miraculous effort by rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler. I don't trust Dennis Allen, right? If you swapped coaches here, maybe Sean Payton would be able to get enough out of a Saints team at home. But with Dennis Allen being the coach of the Saints, I just don't trust the Saints to come forth with a great performance. So I'm going to take Denver here on the road. I would borderline bet this, but I just don't feel like it's really warranted because it's two terrible teams for me. I don't think Denver's terrible, but they're not good. And it's a short week and it's a Thursday and weird things happen on a Thursday. And the team that I happen to like in the game is on the road. There's not, I really like about betting this game. So let's take a look at who is betting this game and what they are betting when it comes to OUTLIER. So taking a look here, The Denver Broncos are getting 53% of the money on the money line, 57% of the money, 53% of the bets. Denver is getting 69% of the money on the spread and 44% of the bets. So the Saints are getting more percentage of the bets on the spread, but the Denver Broncos are getting much more money, 69% of the money. In terms of the bets, 88% on the over, 76% of the money is on the over 36.5, which honestly, I could see that just because, again, wacky Thursday night game in a dome, perfect environment, two kind of weird quarterbacks that could make some big plays, but also could turn the ball over. But you would have to think that both the defenses of these teams would be the strengths of these teams just because they're the healthier units. That being said, the Saints defense might just be a fade altogether right now with how poorly they are playing. So I totally understand the over as well. I just don't really have a read for the total in this game. I would just stay away from it. But like I said, I'd stay away from the game entirely. I would not bet it, but I will take the Broncos both ways. Big Al says the Saints are severely shorthanded. Shout out to the person with the dislike, by the way. We love you too. Big Al says Sean Payton revenge game. He's going to be smoking on that Saints pack. Singh says Broncos 16-13. Big Al's got Broncos 23-17. Miss Jennifer is back in the chat. Shout out to Miss Jennifer. Stephanie is asking how Big Al did in week 6. She was 12-2. Shout out to Stephanie, one of the best pickers in the chat. All right, next up, we've got the best game of the week. The game that everybody is waiting for. The game that everybody is anticipating. I ask my neighbor. I ask my friend. I ask my uncle. I ask all the people around me. And the one game that they are wondering about, the one game that they're saying, Mitch, what is going to happen in this game? It's the greatest game I've ever heard of. The New England Patriots are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. It is borderline Super Bowl worthy. It is primetime television. It is must watch. It is get your popcorn ready football, baby. You've got, for the first overall pick, the New England Patriots versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence versus a quarterback that's already better than him, Drake May, in his second ever start. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I am completely biased. I do not care. I am picking the Patriots. I do not care. Jacksonville is a absolute dumpster fire. Is Jacksonville really even going to care about this game? Here's the thing, right? This is why I'm picking the Patriots. I don't even need to break down the game at all. This is why I'm picking the Patriots. One team actually has some sort of degree of passion and hope and vigor, and the other team just doesn't want to be there. The other team has spent the entire week in London, and yes, they have an advantage because of that. But does Jacksonville have any hope? At least with the Patriots, like Kendrick Bourne is talking about how Drake May has aura. Demario Douglas, I've never seen the guy smile more. Gerard Mayo has a point to prove in this game that he's not a fraud. There's a lot of reason for the Patriots to actually get excited for this game. It's a game that they think they can win, and there's not many of those on the schedule. They have a quarterback they actually believe in now. I think they have the better defense. I think they have the better special teams, and they might have the better quarterback. Now, that being said, is Jacksonville more talented? Yeah, probably. They have a better receiving core. They have a healthier offensive line. They've got 2 good running backs. Their D-line isn't half bad. But I just look at the setting of both teams, and I think Doug Peterson could be fired if he loses this game, and I wouldn't be shocked. Honestly, Jacksonville has looked so bad all year long. Would I be shocked if they beat the Patriots? Absolutely not. They're 5.5-point favorites. But I'm going to take New England. I think Christian Gonzalez is going to bounce back from last week. He's going to lock down Brian Thomas. You're not going to see him all day. I think that the Patriots can rattle Trevor Lawrence, force a couple mistakes. I think Drake May will go out there and play free. He was a little bit shaky early in his first start because he was, had that anticipation, had those jitters. He threw a bad interception early, but then, he put up the first ever rookie quarterback to lead his team in rushing and throw 3 touchdowns in a single game since 1950. The kid is legit. The Jags secondary is absolute booty cheek. They can't cover anything. They play a lot of man coverage, which I think will be easy for May to decipher, and I think Demario Douglas will eat it up. And hopefully Ramondre plays. I don't think he's going to play, though. But I'm just going to take the better defense, the team that just has more excitement in their franchise. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Whatever. It's just a game that nobody cares about, but I'll take the Patriots. Let's check out what people are picking, because I'm actually really intrigued to see what the betting splits are for this one in particular. So let's take a look at that. We've got 79% of the money line bets on Jacksonville, but 47% of the money is on the Patriots. For the spread, 84% of the bets is on New England, while 53% of the money is on Jacksonville. I really don't know how Jacksonville can be favored by 5.5 against any team in the NFL. I understand that New England is my 32nd power ranked team in football, but Jacksonville is like 28 or 29. Like, come on. The over is 85% and 92% of the money. I actually do kind of lean towards the over. I do agree with that. I think if you are going to play anything, I would actually lean towards New England plus 5.5 and the over 42.5 if I were going to play anything. I've considered the Patriots as a best bet. I have not confirmed that yet. They might be a bonus pick because like I usually have it, New England is usually a team I don't want to put in my best bets because they're my favorite team, and I don't really want to do that to you guys. So we'll see. Jacksonville sucks, though. It's 2 1-5 teams. Big Al's got the Patriots 21, Jaguars 16. New England wins and covers as the designated road team. I have 2 games of the week this week, says Big Al. And Miss Jennifer wants Jake Hedge to know that he's picking the Broncos, or she's picking the Broncos, I should say. Apologies to Jennifer with calling her a he. All right, let's get to it. The third game. Now, this game is much less. I'm sorry that you guys have to witness this game. I truly am. It's nowhere even close. Not even in the same stratosphere, universe, planet as the Patriots and Jags. I apologize to everybody with 2 eyeballs that they have to watch CJ Stroud versus Jordan Love at Lambeau Field. It's just nowhere close to the game that the Patriots and the Jaguars are going to put forth early in the morning. But we do have the Texans, who beat the Patriots by 20, and the Packers. And the Packers are favored by 2.5. And this is going to be a really, really fun game, man. We've got 2 explosive offenses. We've got 2 young quarterbacks that love to throw big, big plays down the field. We've got 2 defenses that are talented, 2 young coaches. LaFleur, established as an elite coach. DeMeco Ryans trying to make a name for himself in that category. Green Bay is at home. Green Bay is healthy. They really aren't missing anybody or anything at this point. The Texans are missing one Nico Collins and could also be missing a couple players in the secondary. Jimmy Ward did miss the game against the Patriots, which forced a weak Eric Murray into the game pretty consistently. Kamari Lassiter missed the game against the Patriots. He's been their number 2 corner, the rookie. So if those 2 players miss, that would bring some pretty big edges at wide receiver. And the passing game to the Packers versus the Texans, I am going to check the injury reports to see if anything happened today in terms of the injury report, just to confirm some things I like to check for you guys. So, but check these as they go. Texans, both their linebackers did not practice today. Lassiter remains on the did not practice. Jimmy Ward remains on the did not practice. For the Packers, Devontae Wyatt, Elton Jenkins, 2 big-time players on the defensive and offensive lines, did not practice. Wyatt, I don't think's played the last couple of games, but I don't really think that's like a huge deal. Jenkins, though, would be a big miss if he does miss the game. It does look like Jair will be there, as well as Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, all the receivers for the Packers, so that's good. In terms of the matchup, it's really interesting. I'm really not so sure how this game is going to go. I do think that both teams have the potential to run the ball in this game. I thought the Texans ran the ball pretty well against the Patriots, just in terms of explosives. I didn't feel it was very consistent, but I felt like Mixon and Pierce were able to hit a few big runs that really flipped the field. CJ Stroud seemed to be dialed in even without Nico Collins, with Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell looked better than he's looked all year. Dalton Schultz can also contribute as that third option, and Mixon looked flawless in the game against New England. I think that the Packers defense on paper doesn't match up too poorly with Houston without Nico Collins, because Jair could potentially match up with Diggs, and then, you can limit Tank Dell if, through your coverage. McKinney has been very, very good in the back end, limiting big plays and causing some turnovers. Now, I do think that the Texans will be able to target the middle of the field because the Packers linebackers are not the greatest in the world. And the pass rush of the Packers hasn't been overwhelming, but it does help that they're at home. Their run defense, though, has actually, just off the top of my head, been kind of like deceptively good compared to years past. I actually want to look up where they rank. I'm kind of curious there, where they rank. So they rank number 11 against yards per attempt. That works for my eyes. Eighth in yards as well. So I do think Green Bay will have more success running the ball on offense than the Texans, because from what I've seen, the Texans' run defense has been less consistent than the Packers. The Packers' run offense has been much more consistent than the Texans. I think that the Texans' secondary is a little bit susceptible to depth at receiver. Even we saw Demario Douglas went off. I could see Reed having a pretty good game here. And if they decide to put Stingley on Reed, I could see Watson potentially having a big game. I think Watson's speed could be a problem for these corners because they're bigger, they're more physical corners. I don't necessarily think they're the fastest. I do think the Texans can get a little bit of pressure on Love, but Love is very good at navigating that pressure and being able to make throws under pressure pretty well. So Packers seem healthier. Packers are at home. I think the Packers are the better run team in this game. I do lean towards the Packers. I do think they'll win this game. This feels like a spot where the Texans are due for a loss a little bit. I thought they were much more impressive last week than they've been in most weeks, but that was against a bad Patriots team. And it's hard to bet against CJ. He's the better quarterback in this game, but Matt LaFleur to me has been the better coach than D'Amico and than Slowick this year. And I don't think the Packers defense is half bad. I trust them at home to play decent enough. And I think their offense in Green Bay is going to be able to create some explosives against this secondary of Houston on the road. So I'm going to take the Packers in a close one, something like 28-24. Something like that. So I'll take Green Bay to win, Green Bay to cover the game. Sing sees the same thing, 28-24. Interesting. Big Al's got 27-24 Packers. So yeah, this is a good game. I'm looking forward to this one. I think the Packers have the edge. I think they'll take this one. If Nico Collins was playing, I may change my opinion, but obviously he is not playing. Let's see what Outlier has for this matchup this week in Green Bay. Who's betting what? 64% of the bets are on the Packers money line, while 54% of the money is on the Texans money line. 69% of the bets are on the Texans with the spread, as well as 76% of the money. 84% of the money is on the over. 96% of the money is on the over. 84% of the bets. The total is 47.5. I would lean towards the over. I don't disagree with that. I also think the Packers would be the side for me for sure. So that's how I see it. You guys let me know what you think of that game. That's one of the games of the week. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. This is a really good game. This is a really important game, in my opinion, for week number 7. The Falcons have been playing really good football. They're at home once again. And the Seahawks, the inverse. They're on the road. They have not been playing well. But the Seahawks do have 10 days to rest, to prepare, to get some players back. They made a pretty significant trade, trading for defensive tackle of Jacksonville, Roy Robertson-Harris, who could help them against the run and the pass. Mike McDonald's defense definitely needs some help after their last few performances. Geno Smith had a bad game against the Niners, but he has yet to really play well against the Niners, so that could be just a matchup flaw. I was at that game. I thought Seattle did a pretty poor job against the run in a number of different ways. I felt like Geno had an off game, but there were opportunities there for Seattle to make that a game and for him to play better. This feels like a shootout. It feels like a shootout. It feels like Cousins, the way he's playing. It feels like Atlanta should be able to run the ball with Bijan and with Tyler Algier. I think a big injury in this game is Reek Woolen, who could be out once again. He was out on Thursday night. He could be out here, and that would allow Drake London to perhaps have a big game without Reek Woolen on the outside. I do think that Witherspoon will be able to match up with Darnell Mooney pretty effectively, though. And can Seattle find some ways to get pressure on Cousins? Will Roy Robertson-Harris help? Cousins isn't the most elusive guy, but the Seahawks don't have the greatest pass rush. Simulated pressures, playing with Cousins a little bit, that could certainly help. I don't know what Seattle's going to try to do to throw him off, but I do have a feeling Seattle's going to win. I have a feeling Seattle's going to win here. I've had a feeling all week they're going to win this game. So I'm going to take the underdog +3. And the reason I like Seattle, I am not a huge fan of Atlanta's defense. I don't think I think there's aspects that I like, like their interior D-line isn't half bad, but it's older. But I don't think that Atlanta's pass rush is all that good. And Seattle's biggest flaw is their O-line. And when Seattle has time to throw and make plays, I feel like Geno with those receivers, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, it's really hard when Geno has time to be able to match up with those guys. And I don't think Atlanta really has the secondary to match up. And I don't really think they have the pass rush to overwhelm Seattle even on the road. And Kenneth Walker is due for a bit of a bounce back. I love that Seattle has 10 days to prepare for this game. It's a huge potential wild card or NFC playoff matchup. And like I said, I think Seattle will be healthier up front with potentially Byron Murphy coming back and Roy Robertson-Harris being added to the rotation. So I think Seattle will do a better job here against the run. And they just historically, against Shanahan, in the last 6 games, and I know that McDonald is new to Seattle and Pete Carroll was there previously, but they've just struggled to beat San Fran, and I think that makes them look worse than they actually are. So I think there's some matchup things there as well. So yeah, I like Seattle in the upset. I at least like them with the points. If you can get 3 with Seattle, this feels like a coin flip. It feels like Atlanta plays a close game, every single week. I wasn't too impressed with Atlanta's defense against Carolina. I felt like that game could have gone, really down to the wire, and Carolina was moving the ball pretty effectively. Their defense is just awful. So if Seattle's defense can show up a little bit more than they've been showing up lately, I feel like they can win. So I'm going to go with an underdog pick here. I'm going to pick Seattle, but it's not probably one of the best bets of the week, but I do think this is one of the better upset potential games. So let's take a look at the splits for Seattle and Atlanta. 86% of the money line bets are on Atlanta. 83% of the money is on Atlanta. In terms of the spread, 63% is on Seattle. The bets, 88% of the money is on Seattle. 74% of the over bets is on the over, and then 90% of the money is on the over as well. So the over, the total is sitting at 51.5. I do lean towards the over with both of these offenses being potent, but it is a very high number, and these defenses being kind of strugglesville. I could even see this game going into overtime. I'm not going to lie. I could see like a crazy game here. I could see like a 34-30 type of game, potential overtime type of game. I could see that like 36-30 type deal. So who knows, but I'm definitely looking forward to this one because I think these quarterbacks can sling it, and it should be pretty back and forth and pretty fun. So there you have it. Atlanta and Seattle, I'm picking the upset. You guys let me know what you think. Durkant's got 24-21 Falcons. Big Al's got 28-20 Falcons. Stephanie is going 31-28 Falcons. And Singh's got 28-21 Falcons. So you guys are all going with the Falcons. Interestingly enough, we've got over 111 people in the chat. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the BLV Live Weekly Picks. If you haven't already, Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe. Thanks, guys, for watching. All right, next up. Is that our next game? Yes, it is. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati favored by 6, which on the surface feels like a little bit of a juicy number, and I've seen this even at 5.5 in some places, 6.5 at times this week. So it's been moving a lot, but Cincinnati has, I think, been underrated for a majority of the year. Cleveland has been overrated for a majority of the year, but Cleveland does kind of own the Bengals. Like, there is something to the history of this matchup. Cleveland has had a lot of success against this specific Bengals team, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. But with the state of the Bengals and the state of the Browns, the Bengals desperately need to win, and the Browns, they just suck. Like, they are so bad and so incompetent, and they have such a terrible quarterback that it's hard to trust them to come through with a game. It's hard to bet on them with points. It's hard to do anything with the Browns. They are terrible. On top of that, they traded their best receiver, Amari Cooper, to Buffalo. So not only does that affect their offense, but it affects their psyche, their mentality. It affects how they feel about this game. They've already given up on the season. So it's hard to really handicap this game because I would not blame somebody if they took the points because of the matchup, because of the history of these games. Stefanski has outcoached Zach Taylor. The Browns have been able to run the ball on the Bengals. And the defense for the Browns always seemingly steps up against the Bengals. But I will say the Bengals defense has played a little bit better as of late. They definitely played better against the Giants. Getting Sheldon Rankins back was a huge deal for their defensive line. And they didn't even play half bad against the run against Baltimore. It was really the pass that cooked them. And if they even just bring a similar game plan that they had against Baltimore and they do that against Deshaun Watson, it should be able to have success. If they just stack the box and stop the run against Cleveland and ask Deshaun Watson to beat them with Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore, they should be able to play a defensive game and even win it. So I could see the Bengals offense struggling a little bit here in Cleveland, as they typically do. But I think in the end, the Bengals will be able to win this game. I am going to take the points, though. I'm going to take the 6 points with the Browns. I think this will be like maybe right on the head, like 20-14. Maybe I'll lose by a point or two. But let's for the sake of the video, let's go with 20 to, what was the score against the Eagles? 20-16? I could see almost the same thing happening. Like, the Eagles were at home. The Eagles were favored by 9, and the Browns somehow covered that despite not scoring an offensive touchdown. I think that the Browns will have more offensive success here, especially if they get Nick Chubb back. They have Jack Conklin, I think, coming back at right tackle. I think the Browns will be able to run the ball better than they did against the Eagles, and I think that will allow them to score an offensive touchdown. So I think it will be pretty close. I'm going to take the points with Cleveland, but I'm going to take the Bengals to win and squeak it out. I just don't think the Browns are competent enough to actually win the game, But I think that it will be close because the defense will step up and the run game will be improved thanks to offensive line injury returns and because of perhaps Stefanski getting back to his formula of run and play action a little bit more so than spread. So, not too complicated here. Let's check out I don't even know what the total is for this game. So, let's check that out and see what's going on in Bengals-Browns. So, for the money line, 96% of the bets are on the Bengals and 99% of the money is on the Bengals. That's a little scary. 64% of the bets is on the Bengals spread as well as 78% of the money. Now, on the over, 82% of the percentage of bets are on the over and 65% of the money is on the over 42.5. I would actually lean towards the under 42.5, but that's just me. And this outlier actually has it as 5.5. So at 5.5, I would actually probably lean towards Cincinnati, but at 6.5, I would lean towards Cleveland. I think 6 is obviously a key number. So at 6, I would probably lean towards Cleveland, 6.5. At 5.5, I would lean towards Cincinnati because I could see Cincinnati winning by 6 or Cincinnati winning by 7. So it's kind of dicey there. But at 6.5, I would lean towards Cleveland. I think anything above 6 would maybe be a bet for Cleveland. At if this gets below 5, it might be a bet for Cincinnati. But yeah, I don't love the home dog in division with historic precedent that they kind of win this matchup. So I don't love betting the Bengals here, which I've been betting all year, some to success and some to not. All right, next up, we have the Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are favored by 2.5. Let's see what outlier has the number at. What's the number? 1.5 for Minnesota. Okay. So this will be all over. 1.5 to 2.5, but we're going to go with 2.5 for now. This game's really hard. I am not betting this game. There are people that are going to bet this game, but I can't see how anyone could have a strong enough opinion on either team. I just don't, because both teams are good. Both teams are well coached. Detroit was seen as the significantly better team entering the season, and Minnesota has been probably overall the better team this year. Both quarterbacks, I feel like, have had their moments this year. Goff recently, Darnold maybe a little bit closer to the beginning of the season. The O-lines are both fantastic. Minnesota is the home team, and Minnesota's home field is pretty significant. I think both teams have a significant home field. Both teams have dangerous weapons. Both teams have good running games this year, while the Detroit's is probably elite. Vikings is good. The Vikings have the better defense. The Vikings are coming off a bye with a good coaching staff. Brian Flores defensively. Last time he had a bye against Jared Goff, it helped him win a Super Bowl and basically shut down Jared Goff and make him look like a joke. And Kevin O'Connell is pretty wizardry as well, and could shove it in the face of Ben Johnson after Ben Johnson tried to get as many offensive linemen a touchdown as possible against the Cowboys. This feels like the Lions would be the team to knock off the Vikings and beat them for the first time. That's kind of like the feeling that I got initially. But when I really think about the matchup and I think about Aiden Hutchinson getting hurt, and I think about Jared Goff potentially under pressure, what Flores could do to him in terms of covering the middle of the field and forcing him to throw outside the numbers, the Vikings being a good run defense team, although the Lions kind of just being a team that can run on everybody, and that might be able to stress the Vikings out. The Vikings improving their secondary this offseason, Stephon Gilmore really helping in that regard. And then offensively, I think one of the key areas is the Vikings receivers, I think, are really tough matchups for the Lions. Like, the Carlton Davis is a good player and he's been playing well, but he can't stick with Jefferson. I mean, Jefferson is just too crafty and too quick. Carlton Davis is better with linear, taller, physical players, and Jefferson is just very slippery and I think that's a terrible matchup. And Jordan Addison is almost the same type of player. He's just not as good. And then Jordan Addison is playing Terrion Arnold, who is not any good at football. Yeah, Brian Branch is sick, and I like the D tackles, and I think the Lions are good against the run, but what does that look like with Aiden Hutchinson? Can they get pressure without Aiden Hutchinson? Will they have to blitz without Aiden Hutchinson, which leaves Jefferson one-on-one? That's scary. I like the Vikings. I'm going to pick the Vikings. They're at home. They've had more rest. They've had more time to game plan. They've got Brian Flores, the better defensive coordinator in the game. They've got a better defense. Goff is the better quarterback. Yes. The O-line of the Lions is probably a bit better. The Lions might be able to be one of the few teams that can actually pick up the Vikings' blitzes. But I actually feel like Flores will have adjusted from last year. So I'm going to take the Vikings in a close game, but I'm not betting it. I don't have enough faith in fading the Lions, who have been, under Dan Campbell, one of the best spread teams in football. They just always cover the spread. So it's tough for me to fade the Lions. I just don't believe in that. Yeah, let's check the injury report, Big Al. Let's check the injury report, because he does say Carlton Davis did not practice this week, so I'm pointing to Davis not playing. Okay, so let's look that up. That's a big deal, obviously. The Lions, they have Amik Robertson, who's not bad, but he's more of a nickel corner, so I'm not really sure how that depth would look. Davis, Skipper, who's their 6th offensive lineman, did not practice. Davis is not in concussion protocol. He has a quad injury. Brian Branch was limited. So it doesn't appear they have too many injuries. Maybe Davis, though, which is pretty significant, even if I think he has a bad matchup in this game. The Vikings, injuries. Aaron Jones is a big one, obviously. Aaron Jones could miss this game, but he's a running back. I mean, I don't really think... He's not Christian McCaffrey, so I don't really care that much about it. He is good, but he's not Christian McCaffrey. Harrison Phillips didn't practice on Wednesday. That's a big deal. Blake Cashman did not practice on Wednesday. That's a big deal. Linebacker and defensive lineman. Patrick Jones also did not practice. So keep an eye out on these. I definitely think that Jones is not like a swing vote for me. But if Phillips and Cashman and Jones are all out, I wouldn't think all 3 of them would be out. But that's pretty significant to their front 7, because all 3 players play a pretty big role there. I still lean towards the Vikings, in my opinion, but long term, I do see the Lions as probably the overall bigger threat in the NFC. But I want to see how this defense plays without Aiden Hutchinson, because that might just change their entire season. That might just completely take them out of the running for a potential Super Bowl run, because that's what it looked like they were going to be before this. Let's take a look at who's betting what right now on OUTLIER for the Lions and the Vikings. 58% of the bets is on the Lions on the money line, and 89% of the money is on the Lions. The Lions are a very public team. The public loves the Lions. It's no surprise. I'm sure a lot of people still have their not regret, but their just feeling of the Vikings in the back of their mind might not be as good as their start, potentially, just because of their preseason expectation. But I think they've lived up to every expectation so far. 87% of the bets on the spread are the Lions, and 94% of the money is on the Lions, which that's a lot. 87% of the bets percentage on the over, and 95% of the money is on the over. I would also, 50.5 is a high number. I'm not going to lie about that. Just given the Lions' state of their defense, I would lean towards the over. I could see this being a pretty chaotic game. I would lean towards the over 50.5, but I wouldn't have a strong feeling, just because this is in Minnesota, and Minnesota's defense has played phenomenal this year. So it's hard to say, but the Lions can move the ball on the Vikings. I think some teams have moved the ball on the Vikings, like the Jets have, the Niners have. It's just a matter of getting points. You can get yards, but points are a different discussion, right? So, yeah, that's one of the games of the week. I lean towards Vikings, even at 2.5, but it's probably going to land around 1.5. So I'll take the Vikings regardless of the spread, both ways at home. Next up, we've got the Carolina Panthers at the Washington Commanders. Washington is -8. Carolina is putrid. They are so bad. Their defense is disgusting. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. This might be a no punter for the Commanders. They might not punt once. You know, unless the Panthers have a fluky turnover, I don't really know how they're going to get that many stops. I'm not sure on the status of Brian Robinson, but obviously he was missed against the Ravens. He provides a consistent running force for this offense. And really, you know, as much as people want to give Jaden Daniels all the credit, the run game has been so essential to the Commanders' offense because that keeps them out of 3rd and long, that keeps them in manageable situations. I will say the Panthers' offense is pretty feisty. Andy Dalton can make plays. He can make throws. Deontay Johnson has been a tough cover all year for pretty much every opponent he's played. Xavier Legette seems to make a couple plays every game. And I have in mind overall David Canales, even with his schmedium shirts out there, I feel like his scheme has been pretty solid. Chuba Hubbard's been pretty good. I'm excited for Brooks coming back to the offense. The O-line's been good. I do think that the Panthers can move the ball. I do think the Panthers can score. I do feel like 8 is inflated. I do think that's an inflated number. And given that the Commanders are a pretty young team, I could see them after a physical Ravens game having a letdown. I'm not saying they're going to lose. I'm not going to pick them to lose. I'm going to pick the Commanders. But I could see this game being close for mental reasons. Jonathan Allen is also out for the year for the Commanders, who's their best defensive player, in my opinion. So that's obviously a huge loss, which should help the Panthers run the ball and perhaps sustain, time of possession. And it's hard to know how a D-line may adjust the week after losing a player of that significance and that ability. That being said, I can't count on the Panthers to stop anything. I will take the 8 points, though. I just feel like that's too many points with the ability to move the ball against this Commanders defense. So I'm going to take 8 with Carolina, but I'm going to take the Commanders to win. So Commanders to win, Panthers to cover. We're going to go back to the well with Carolina after they weren't able to cover against the Falcons. I don't know why I keep doing it to myself. Durkant also thinks the Panthers will cover 31-26. Big Al says, here's my lock of the week. Commanders 34, Panthers 14. Commanders are also at home, which might allow them to avoid the potential down emotional, who cares, it's the Panthers game. But it's a young team. So let's take a look at where the money is at. 97% of the bets on the money line are on the Commanders. 99% of the money is on the Commanders. 84% of the bets on the spread are on the Commanders, which is crazy. Maybe that's what moved it to 8, 8.5. 8.5, this might be a bet, to be honest, but 8, it could land on 8. I like 31-23. I wouldn't be that surprised. Percentage of money, 83% on the Commanders. Over 72% of the bets, 89% of the money on the over, 51.5. And I would have to agree with the money and the bets on the over because neither of these teams have a defense. Not the Commanders, not the Panthers. Next up, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. Big Al. Fly, Eagles, fly. With your douche of a coach now. Eagles -3 at the New York G-Men. I liked the G-Men at 3.5. And I liked the G-Men with Malik Neighbors coming back and Andrew Thomas at left tackle. But here's the problem, homies. Andrew Thomas is gonzo. Dunzo. No longer on the Giants. That is an absolute killer. That being said, the Eagles, I don't know how they're going to respond to Nick Sirianni being a jackass. Like, how do they respond to that? You know? Do they come out and they play hard for their coach? Do they come out and lay an egg? They're on the road. It's a divisional matchup. It's a rivalry game. It's a team that they've mostly owned throughout the Nick Sirianni era. And, you know, we've seen these teams play and the Eagles have ran them over. The Giants do have a good front seven. I mean, shout out to Azeez Ojulari on Sunday Night Football, who's probably better than Kayvon Thibodeau. Don't tell anyone I said that, by the way, but he's probably better. Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence are dogs right now, and the Giants are playing good defense. They're playing good defense. The Eagles, they might be without Mailata at left tackle, which is a problem. So both these teams could be without their left tackles. I don't think Dallas Goedert's going to play either. But A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are there, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have clear mismatches against the Giants' secondary. So that's a big deal. Daniel Jones under pressure, though, without Andrew Thomas is scaring me. I do think Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson will make their plays, and I do think Brian Daboll is a better coach than Sirianni by 1,000. I also feel like it's hard to pick this game because I like the Giants coaching more, but I like the players on the Eagles more. I also think the Eagles defense has been playing pretty well. I don't know if that's really the competition, though. And the Eagles have played a lot of O-lines, I should say, that have had injuries. The Saints, last week the Browns, now they play the Giants. They've been pretty good against those teams that have had offensive line injuries. I'm going to lean towards the Eagles. The Eagles to win, the Eagles to cover. I do think they're the more talented team. I still think they have the better quarterback, although I'm not 100% sure about that. I am very scared about the Giants without Andrew Thomas. And I think that the Eagles have the better running game. I think the Eagles have the better weapons overall. And I think that the defenses are probably relatively even. The Giants may be a bit better, but the Eagles I've seen a lot of these games, and the Eagles tend to just overpower the Giants and have the time of possession. And I don't know, man. Daniel Jones without Andrew Thomas is just a scary proposition. So I'm going to take Jalen Hurts and the Eagles here to win and to cover. I'm not going to go with that many more upsets here. So I'm going to take the Eagles. I'm not too confident about it right now, but we'll see how it goes. Saquon return game in New York. That's also true. That might just be bettable because of that. Saquon might go off, says Big Al. 27-17 Eagles. Damn, Big Al made the best point in the entire chat, bro. I didn't think about that. I don't know why I didn't think about that. But that is a game changer, Big Al. That's a game changer. So let's take a look at the numbers. 93% of the bets are on the Eagles. 98% of the money on the Eagles on the money line. The spread, 84% of the bets on the Eagles. 67% of the money on the Eagles. 81% of the money on the over. That's interesting. 66% of the money on the over. I think I would lean towards the under. I'm not going to lie. I think I'd lean towards the under. I don't know. That's tough. Eagles are 3-2. Giants are 2-4. It's a big game, man. Big game in the NFC East. Big game in the NFC East. Big Al's got the Eagles 27-17. Philadelphia wins and covers. They need to show me something good on offense, he says. Durkant says if Neighbors plays, Giants 27-24. If not, Eagles 24-17. Okay. So a little bit of disagreement in the chat. If you guys haven't already, Gronk, spike the like button. We're going fly, Eagles, fly. Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are fresh off the bye week. They are healthier on defense. You know, Darius Williams is back in the secondary. They have, I think, as many pieces as they're going to have on defense. Cooper Kupp, cup of coffee, could be back. Kyron Williams is rested. They've got Matthew Stafford rested. Sean McVay with an extra week to prepare for the awful Las Vegas Raiders. Aiden O'Connell, as conservative as he is. The no-run game having Raiders and the no Devontae Adams having Raiders, as well as the no Christian Wilkins having Raiders. I think this is a lock. I think the Rams are going to slaughter the Raiders. I know that the spread feels inflated, and I know that it feels like the Rams shouldn't be favored by this much against most NFL opponents because they're just not that good. I mean, they're 1-4. But like, if the Rams lose, they're toast. If the Rams lose, they're done. If the Rams lose, their season's over, and it's a waste. They might as well trade Matthew Stafford, right? But the Rams, they could get cut back this week. They still got Stafford. The O-line could get healthier. Puka could come back, and they could all of a sudden maybe turn this into a bit of a season here and get on a roll, right? So you bring that up. I think the Rams are going to come out with their best performance of the year so far. I think Sean McVay, after a bye, is going to have this team humming on offense. I think Kyron's going to be able to run the ball without Wilkins in there. We've seen a big deficiency there. We've seen the Raiders questioning their coaching. We've seen the Raiders questioning their culture. A lot of things wrong with this Raiders team. This is as much of a fade on the Raiders as it is a pick of the Rams. I think this could be a blowout. I'm not going to lie. So looking at the numbers, the bets, 91% of the money line on the Rams, 67% of the money on the Rams. This is in LA. But that being said, this could also be like a pretty split crowd. I wouldn't be shocked if there were more Raiders fans there than Rams fans. 71% of the bets on the spread are on the Rams, and 79% of the money is on the Rams. 85% of the bets on the over, 83% of the money on the over. Again, feels like an inflated line, but is it really when you consider that the Raiders' D-line is not what it was? Their O-line is beat up. Their quarterback sucks. Their run game is not effective. And the Rams could be healthier. So I like the Rams here quite a bit. They'll probably be a best bet. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, not number one. They are underdogs of 3.5 at the Indianapolis Colts, and the least accurate quarterback I may have ever seen in the history of watching football. Anthony Richardson has returned to the lineup, and Durkant is super happy about it because he has nightmares about Joe Flacco when he goes to bed. The Dolphins are 2-3, but they still got a chance to turn this season around because around the corner is the saving grace, the sweet Hawaiian Tua Tagovailoa returning. So you know that Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and the boys are going to be coming out hard in this matchup. After a bye, could this offense settle in with Tyler Huntley? Can Tyler Huntley get a better handle here? This is going to be one of my upsets. I'm going to pick the Miami Dolphins. Yep, I'm going to pick the Miami Dolphins. The one thing that scares me is the Colts running game. I don't like Jonathan Taylor running the ball, who probably will be back this game, against the Dolphins front seven. It's a little scary, but I just don't think the Colts will be able to throw it. Like, the Dolphins have a pretty good pass defense. They have all season, despite the injuries to their pass rush. And they do have an underrated interior pass rush, led by Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer. Their secondary is pretty healthy, so I'm not too worried about that, you know. And with Richardson, they just don't have a passing game. Like, I think there's a significant gap between Richardson and Flacco. And even if the Colts try to run the ball, I just don't think that they're going to be able to make enough plays in the passing game. And Richardson can make a mistake that turns the tide. Well, I feel like Miami can run the ball in this game. I feel like the Colts have been bad against the run, and Miami ran the ball well against New England. I think that Tyreek and Waddle against a cover 3 heavy system is a terrible matchup because of their speed. And I think Huntley can hit wide open receivers that are constantly breaking coverage rules because Mike McDaniel has had an extra week to study Gus Bradley, which is not a good thing, right? And then on top of that, I think that Miami's mostly healthy on the O-line with Armstead back and an extra week for these guys to get rested. So I don't think they're going to get overwhelmed in the pass rush department. Jonnu Smith's been playing well as well. Odell could be implemented into the offense as well. Perhaps he looks decent. I don't know. We'll see, but I'm just throwing that out there. I think Miami will have more success through the air. I think they'll create more explosives. specifically off of play action, and I think they'll be able to run the ball. So I actually like the Dolphins, and I like the Dolphins in a dome. I think this is a good spot for them to turn their season around. The Colts, they don't even know if they have the right quarterback playing. So let's take a look at what people are betting here. Miami at +3.5, I really like, but at +3, I still like it, just not quite as much. 3.5 feels very nice for me. 83% of the bets are on the Colts on the money line, and 77% of the money is on the Colts. The spread, 58% of the bets are on the Colts, and 67% of the money is on Miami. The over, 81% of the bets are on the over. 77% of the money is on the over, 43.5. That's interesting. Both are offensive coaches. Shane Steichen, really good schemer. Mike McDaniel has had a bye, so understandable. But then you look at Miami's under numbers, and they've hit the under 9 of their last 10 games. So that's a pretty heavy trend for a lot of money and a lot of bets to be coming on the over. Just saying, just throwing that out there, guys, for you, considering Miami. Next up, we've got the game of the week, the game of the year, the game that everybody will be tuning into on the Bottom Line View, as I'll be live providing commentary. So make sure that you're there, guys. Make sure that you're there. San Francisco 49ers are at home, and they are currently favored by 1.5, although I wouldn't be shocked that if the public starts betting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Chiefs could be favored by kickoff, and I wouldn't be shocked by that if this ended up flipping. Now, this is a great matchup. Both teams do have a couple of injuries, but the Niners are certainly the more beat-up team. The Niners do have their offensive line intact. Their receivers are pretty much healthy. I know Jawan Jennings was limited at practice, but he should be fine. And Ricky Pearsall could even be back for this game and make his debut in the NFL, which would be pretty exciting. Jordan Mason, I expect to play, although he was beat up in the game against Seattle. Taylor and Garendo didn't look too bad on Thursday Night Football. And let's be honest, Brock Purdy is playing better than Patrick Mahomes this year. So if there's ever been a time where Shanahan has had the better quarterback in the game, he might have the better quarterback right now. Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes, the way that Mahomes is playing right now and the Chiefs offense is playing. So that's something to consider. That being said, the Niners do have a couple of injuries on defense. Safety, Hufanga. I think Ward will be back for this game, but I'm not 100% sure. Javon Hargrave's been out, but I actually think the Niners defense has strangely played better since he got hurt. And the Chiefs, I think Pacheco obviously is out. Rashee Rice out for the year. Those are two huge injuries to the offense. They know that, though. The defense, I don't think anyone is out. They've had a bye week. Travis Kelce's been at baseball games with Taylor Swift, so he's probably a little bit fatter than usual. But there's no injury to discuss. Let's see. I'm going to check this for the Chiefs. I'm not 100% sure. Mike Dana is injured. That's the only one. Mike Dana, who is a starting defensive end. Otherwise, nothing too crazy. I think the injuries to monitor are mostly Niner related. When I break down the game, I think this one's really interesting. Obviously, it's always interesting, Spags versus Shanahan. I think that the Chiefs' defense is good, but I think they're a little overrated right now just because they've played a lot of beat-up offenses. Like, they played the Chargers without their offensive line. They played the Saints without their offensive line, recently. They did kind of get shredded by the Bengals between the 20s. And they did kind of get shredded by the Ravens. So I do think they're a tad overrated given their current numbers. I think they're good, but I don't think they're like as good as last year or as good as the Super Bowl. Their run defense does look very much improved on paper. But again, recently they've played teams without their offensive lines or teams that just can't run the ball that well besides the Ravens. So I'm not sure how much you would really take into, like, are they really good against the run? Or is this just like a kind of a fraud? Their corners are obviously not as good as last year. So that's an area where I feel like the Niners might be able to attack, specifically with Brandon Ayuk. If Trent McDuffie's going to resume his same role where he was covering Debo in the Super Bowl, maybe Brandon Ayuk or Jawan Jennings, who had a good Super Bowl, could attack this secondary. And I do think if the Niners win, it'll be because their O-line is better this year, which it is, and Brock Purdy's better this year, which it is. So if the Niners win, I think it's actually because of Brock Purdy and the passing game. And you would expect to see Steve Spags throw a bunch of different exotics at them, off the bye week, extra time to prepare. You'd expect, simulated pressures. You'd expect all the different stuff, the blitzing DBs, all that stuff. But that being said, they played in the Super Bowl. So how much new can they really come up with that now maybe Shanahan has a counterpunch after having studied that tape and perhaps coming to this game with something new to bring to the game. So I could see the Niners. It's weird because I think I could see a defensive game, but I could also see a game in which the Niners maybe have more success than we think, because I think there are chances here in this matchup to expose the Chiefs defense, specifically on the road. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know. I'd feel better if McCaffrey were playing with the ground game. I'd feel better, but it's kind of interesting. I don't really know. Then on the other side, the Chiefs offense did look better against the Saints, but the Saints defense is ass. I mean, the Saints defense just got absolutely lit up by Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was like dicing the Saints up, and I actually thought the Chiefs looked better on offense. I thought they looked the best they looked on Monday night against the Saints. But then you kind of put that into perspective and you're like, well, is that just the Saints defense? And will Juju Smith-Schuster, continue to be the beast that he was in that game? I don't necessarily think so. If I were the Niners, I'd probably line up and play a lot more man coverage than the Saints did. I thought the Saints would do that. I would test these receivers without Rashee Rice, but the Saints didn't do that. And the Niners do have good corners. I think their corners are better than they were in the Super Bowl. This Green kid is legit. So that gives them 3 really good corners. And I think Fred Warner is playing as good as he's ever played, and Kelsey is as bad as he's ever been. So I feel like that's not a bad matchup for the Niners. And the run game for the Chiefs does look good. I think that's an area where if they can come out and they can run it, and they're able to kind of, keep that possession, go on long drives, keep themselves out of 2nd and 3rd and long with some quick throws, some good runs on early downs, with Kareem Hunt being a bowling ball, I could see them slowly but surely working the way and matriculating the ball down the field. Both offenses have struggled in the red zone. The Chiefs, because mostly they just don't have a go-to guy, and they don't really have a great power running game. And the Niners, because they don't have McCaffrey and they've turned it over a couple times. It's weird. But it's a weird one because the Niners have the worst record, but they're favored. But they've arguably been more dominant than the Chiefs. The Chiefs could easily have lost like 3 games this year. And you guys know the Ravens game, the Bengals game, they barely beat the Chargers. The Chiefs definitely could have a couple losses. The Niners lost some fluky games while they dominated most of their victories. So there's a lot of things to kind of take into account. I am going to pick the Chiefs because if I pick the Chiefs, the Niners are going to win. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick the Chiefs, mostly because of history. Patrick Mahomes is the underdog here, and the Niners are very beat up. So if the Chiefs come out and they play good defense as they've been playing, and they have early down success, I think they'll take the Niners off balance. Now, do I think the Niners are probably better at full strength? Probably. This is the way I see the game going. I rather see the Chiefs winning a close game that probably they come back, or the Niners blowing the Chiefs out. I actually don't see any in between. I could see the Niners honestly, I could see them winning by 17 here, Or I could see the Chiefs winning in the fourth quarter thanks to good defense, running the ball, and Mahomes' magic at the end. That's kind of that's the splits I see. I've had a feeling all week that the Niners are going to blow out the Chiefs, but I'm not going to pick it because I think that's outlandish. I'm going to pick the Chiefs because they have proven it to me that they beat the Niners. So that's going to be my pick. That's going to be my pick. I'm not betting it. I'm not going anywhere near it. But, hey, also, what refs will we get? The refs will determine this game. Will they call holdings or will they not? Will they call interferences in the fourth quarter? We will find out because both of these teams can be clutchy and grabby, and we know the Chiefs like to hold, so especially Nick Bosa. So we will find out how it goes. I'm going to pick the Chiefs, but it should be a great game, and I will be live for this game. Can't wait. Next up, the New York Jets at the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football. The Jets are -2. I love the Jets here. I think the Jets are the better team. I think the Jets are actually way better than people think. And I've been saying that for a couple weeks. You look at who the Jets have played and who the Jets have lost to. They barely lost to the Bills and, arguably the best player in the league. They lost to the Vikings in London, barely. They honestly outplayed them in the second half. They lost to the Niners in San Francisco. Those are 3 of their losses this season. The other loss was a fluke against the Broncos, which they actually should have won at the end. They missed a field goal. So they have 4 losses, but 3 of them are to legit teams. The Steelers are not a legit team. The Steelers are the voodoo magic bullshit team of the NFL. They make no sense. And the Steelers are changing quarterbacks after a win, which is very odd. I don't think Justin Fields is very good, but to switch your quarterback after you just beat the Raiders, it's just really odd. I don't understand what they're doing. And it's going to be Russell Wilson's first game against a pretty good defense, not a great defense, not as good as we thought they would be. They're just decent, right? And I do think the Jets' weakness on defense is their run defense, and I think it's if you can be precise, accurate, and consistent throwing the ball. And Russell Wilson is none of those things. Russell Wilson is closer to washed. George Pickens barely wants to play, and I think he'll be locked up. And I don't think the Steelers can consistently run the ball when you consider their offensive line, Daniels, Frazier, they're injured. Yes, it's in Pittsburgh. Yes, TJ Watt is a Greek god. And yes, Alex Highsmith could be back and their pass rush is deadly. But I think Devontae Adams is going to come or slide right in there. Kevin Nash meme, get out of the wheelchair, pop back up, run some routes. He already knows the offense. I mean, it's the Aaron Rodgers offense. Rodgers literally will probably just point at him to run a route, and he'll just run the route. It doesn't matter. Adams, did he even run routes in Green Bay, or did he just run a fade and then he just adjusted from it every single play? Bro, Adams doesn't need the playbook. He already knows what he wants, what Rodgers wants from him. Garrett Wilson's going to eat. Garrett Wilson's probably going to catch 15 passes in the slot or something, or Alan Lazard. They're just going to continuously throw against these linebackers. Rodgers is going to get it out quick. Breece Hall is going to have a good game. I think they're just going to do what Dak did. Just really fast passes, really quick passes. Not much of a running game, just a lot of quick passes. And then Dante Jackson's going to be covering Garrett Wilson or Devontae Adams. That's a terrible matchup, bro. Terrible matchup. So, yeah, I think the Jets are a better team. And I know they're on the road, but I just don't see it. I think they've got the better quarterback. I think they got the significantly better offense. I mean, they need this win more than the Steelers. The Steelers have a better record. Yes, it's in Pittsburgh, but there's really nothing other than that really gets me going about this matchup for Pittsburgh. So I like the Jets here -2. They will be a best bet. Next up, we're going to go with the Baltimore Ravens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But before we do. I actually want to check these Chiefs and Jets games in terms of the splits. So Chiefs are getting 56% of the bets on the money line and 73% of the money on the money line. Chiefs are getting 83% of the bets on the spread and 75% of the money on the spread. And the over, which is interesting, by the way, because the Niners are still favored. 81% of the over bets and 83% of the money on the over in that game. I would actually lean towards the under in the Niners game, personally. Jets, Steelers. 35% of the money is on the Jets. 65% of the bets are on the Steelers, and 86% of the money is on the Steelers money line. But 51% of the spread bets are on the Jets and 70% of the money. Okay. 92% of the over bets and 79% of the money on the over. The over does make a little sense. It is a very low number, 37.5. Yeah. Okay. The Ravens at the Bucs. I love the Bucs here. I love the Bucs. I love the matchup. I've been saying it for weeks. I actually picked the Bucs before the season. And the way they're playing, I feel that much more confident. This game is, of course, you've got the whole hurricane thing. This game's in Tampa Bay. I don't know if that will motivate them or what, but that could be a factor. You never know. I think that Tampa matches up really well with the Ravens. I think this is a style of the fighter type of deal where I feel like Tampa has all the ingredients to upset the Ravens. They have a quarterback that is playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL. They have two receivers that can get open and separate and make plays against a pretty weak and bad pass defense for the Ravens. And Baker has been as accurate as any quarterback in football this year. They have enough of a running game to sprinkle it in. And I don't think the Ravens have a pass rush that will be able to overwhelm the Bucs, especially at home in that regard. So I think the Bucs should be able to move the ball through the air pretty consistently. And they are more of a pass-heavy team, so I'm not too worried about them just running into the strength of the Ravens. Defensively, the Bucs are great against the run. They have huge humans up front, and the Ravens like to run the ball. And I don't think they're going to be able to just run all over the Bucs. I just don't see that happening. Specifically, Todd Bowles is not going to allow it to happen. Todd Bowles is very good against mobile quarterbacks, and Lamar Jackson is going to struggle, I think, to run in this game. Maybe on scrambles, but on designed runs, I don't see very much success. On top of that, Antoine Winfield is an excellent safety. I feel like he can take away some of those tight end plays down the field. And the Bucs, McCollum is a good, quick corner that I think can match up with Zay Flowers. I like a lot of the matchups for the Bucs in this game. Are the Ravens the better team objectively? Yes. Are the Ravens going to be power rated higher, probably get more bets on them? Yes. I think the Bucs are going to cover, and I think they can win. And I think the Bucs are a little bit underrated still. This is in Tampa Bay. Baltimore doesn't need to win this game. Yes, it's against an NFC opponent. Lamar owns the NFC, but this is a tough matchup. I think they actually played they played a couple years ago. I think the defense of the Bucs, they played the Ravens. I think it was maybe the last year with Tom Brady, but they've played relatively recently. So I think some of the players will have kind of the feel for Lamar overall, because there's a lot of the same defensive players on Tampa Bay. Tampa also has Kalijah Kancey back, Antoine Winfield back. They're mostly healthy on defense. The Ravens, I think it's all about the start too. Like, can the Ravens get the lead? Can the Bucs get the lead? If the Bucs get the lead, maybe they force the Ravens into more drop back scenarios, which is where you kind of want to put them and take their run game away from them. But if the Ravens get the lead, I don't really necessarily feel like the Bucs can't come back because they are a pass-heavy team. So it's interesting. It should be a great game. It should go down to the wire. It should be fourth quarter fun. But I'll be on the Bucs this week. I'll be on the Bucs. I like the Bucs in this game. Let's check out where the public betting is for this one. 90% of the bets on the Ravens on the money line. 74% of the money on the Ravens for the money line. 65% of the bets are on the Ravens and 50% of the money. So both both ways, we're getting 50%, 50%. Over 80% of the bets, 94% of the money on the over. The spread, Tampa +3. It began at 4. I actually bet it at 4. At 3.5, I would still lean towards the Bucs. Over 49.5 would probably be the way I would lean as well. I would probably lean towards the over. So maybe a potential Monday Night Football, high-scoring, fun game. Okay. Let's get to the final game, which is the Cardinals and the Chargers, which is like strangely an attractive game, but also not. It's kind of like, I don't really know what to expect from this game. I lean towards the Chargers because they're better coached. At 2.5, I like the Chargers more than at 3. I was thinking about the Cardinals because it's a Monday night dog at home, and I don't think the Cardinals are like overwhelmed by the Charger talent. Like usually the Cardinals lose just because they're overwhelmed, but the Chargers are better coached. The Chargers have the more consistent, better quarterback. I like what I've seen lately from Herbert, from Ladd McConkey, from the offense of the Chargers running the ball. I think they'll be able to run the ball on Arizona. And the Charger defense has been playing well. So that's kind of the way I lean. I don't have a strong feel for this one, though, because Kyler Murray could easily go nuclear here, where he just runs around. It's a home game in Arizona. It could be weird. Like, I could see the Cardinals winning this game. James Conner, maybe they can get the ground game going, but the Chargers have been good against the run. Trey McBride versus Derwin James could be an excellent matchup in this game. I'm not exactly sure the availability of Marvin Harrison Jr., but he would be a huge factor in this game as well. Because the Chargers don't really have a shutdown corner, so I feel like he would probably have a good game. I lean towards the Chargers. They've just shown me more. They've been more consistent. But I would not bet this. I would stay away from this game. Something about this game kind of feels weird. So, yeah. Let's check out what the... Who's betting what here? I feel like the Chargers are probably getting more work. 73% of the money line bets are on the Chargers, 92% of the money. 58% of the bets on the Chargers, 62% of the money, and 88% on the over on the bets, and 95% of the money on the over. 43.5 is the total. That is a good total, in my opinion. Yeah, I'll probably be betting props in that game, guys. Stephanie, Chargers 27-14. Durkant 20-17. Chargers Cardinals offense is overrated, says Durkant. I don't think we did Tennessee and Buffalo. Good point. I forgot about that game. Good point. I don't even know if I have a graphic for that game. I might have to call myself out for that. I don't think I made a graphic. Hold on. Let me make a graphic for that right now so that we can do this properly. Shout out to Big Al for letting me know that, because I totally forgot about that game. Because I just don't want to talk about Will Levis. But unfortunately, Big Al exists, and he wants to talk about Will Levis. So we're going to talk about the Mayo Man in this video. So you guys let me know who you're picking for the games. Let's see. Saying Chargers 24-20. Bills 27-10. Okay. Let's get the Titans and then we'll be good to go. Just a reminder, guys, if you want to check out Patreon, that's where you can get all of my bets. Last week, we pretty much sweeped outside of one parlay. We pretty much hit all of our bets last week. So if you want to check out the Patreon, the link is in the description. Okay, just going to download this. Gronk spiked the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you guys haven't heard, I do fantasy football content on another YouTube channel called Owner's Box Fantasy. So if you guys want to go check out some fantasy football content from yours truly, Owner's Box Fantasy is the channel. I also put out some shorts and some TikToks for them as well. Let's check out the Buffalo Bills and the Tennessee Titans. Bills are favored by 9. I do believe that's accurate. I think it could be 9.5 at some point. It could be 8.5, somewhere in that range, but we're going to go with 9 for now. Amari Cooper arrives in Buffalo. I think that significantly changes the Bills' long-term prospects for being a Super Bowl contender. Before the season, without a number one receiver, I doubted the Bills' long-term potential to be a Super Bowl team. During the season against the Ravens and the Texans, I doubted their ability to separate and make plays down the field. But now that they have Amari Cooper, I think that long-term, they could go and win the Super Bowl. I will put them in that conversation. I think they're as balanced as any team in the NFL in terms of a good offense, a good defense. They have the quarterback. They have the experience. They have a run game. They can beat you in a variety of different ways. I think the Bills will be a threat to the very end. That being said, Amari Cooper is going to be joining the team. You know, he's only going to have a week to prepare. So how much is that going to impact this game? Probably not too much. He'll probably play a little bit, but not every snap. That being said, do they have to score more than 24 points to win? Probably not. The Titans, they are dreadful. They can't block on one side of their offensive line. Tony Pollard is excellent, but Calvin Ridley is a ghost. DeAndre Hopkins might be washed. Will Levis can't hit anything. Water if he fell out of a boat. The defense for the Titans, I think, is actually going to make this pretty interesting, probably at the start. But the question is, can the Titans tie together a long drive, or can they tie together time of possession to make this competitive? Because Tennessee's defense is legit. They're legit pretty good. Especially their D-line. Jeff Simmons, Sweat, the way they're playing. You know, their secondary is playing good in the coverage, and they're one of the better defenses in the league. So I think Tennessee early could make life difficult, because I don't think Buffalo is going to run the ball all that effectively here. But I kind of see this being a game where the Titans are just not able to tie together drives, piece together offense, and the Bills are just going to separate as time goes on. Like the second half, third quarter, fourth quarter, they're just going to wear them down. Eventually, they'll start hitting some runs. Josh Allen will make some crazy plays that make no sense. And the Titans will ultimately give up at the end because Will Levis will be throwing picks and probably a pick six. And probably Buffalo will cover. I like Stephanie's score of 27-17. We're going to roll with that. Shout out to Stephanie in the chat. Sorry for forgetting this game, but I didn't want to talk about Will Levis. So, Big Al. Will Levis says, Big Al, Will Levis can hit a brick wall, to be honest. Durkant says, Bills absolutely blast the Titans 30-13. Titans are going to give up on Will Levis soon. This could be Mason Rudolph. Big Al says, don't forget BLV versus Consensus with Mitch, Durkant, and Ultra coming up on Friday. And guys, it's going to be live on YouTube this week. We promised that 49er Chief Week would be live for everybody. So even if you're not a member or a patron, this week we are going to showcase the product, BLV versus Consensus. It's an unfiltered, uncapped, absolutely awesome time every single Friday with Durkant, Ultra, and myself, where you get just our honest thoughts about every team. We rip apart teams constantly. We call, quarterbacks out of shape, and we attack everything. So, and we give the BLV view of things, not the consensus. That's the whole point. BLV versus Consensus, brother. So if you want to check that show out, it will be live for free on YouTube, and you can even join the chat. So we'll see you then. That's Friday. But best bets tomorrow. The time, we're not sure yet. It will probably be in the afternoon at some point. But just know Friday there will be a show on the BLV versus Consensus, Durkant and Ultra, as well as myself, a traditional podcast. Thanks guys for watching. It's been Mitch. Week 7 is here. Can't wait. Some really tasty games. A really awkward betting week, though, so don't go crazy if you won last week and you don't feel too confident about these games. Just lay off, maybe bet 1 or 2 or 3. Don't go crazy. Save your money for the future, right? Gronk spike the like button, subscribe. We'll be back soon. Thanks for watching. Deuces. Shout out to the YouTube members.